Today's the big day. The big day that Donald Trump is arraigned at, well, I guess it's the second day that he's going to be arraigned because, man, they're throwing quite literally everything at this man. And anybody who pays attention in any capacity knows it's all fake. It's always been fake. All the lies, all the accusations, they've never panned out. And it's always been some nonsense. And they expect me, they expect you to now, after everything the Democrats have done, they expect us to believe them. Nah, my friends, I'm going to say for you the magic words from Timcast's news mouth. Civil war. Call it whatever you want. But when we're at a point where they gloat that they break the law, Hillary Clinton posted a picture of herself wearing a hat that said, "But her emails." That's right. Hillary Clinton had a private email server that contained public records and top secret documents. And she had her people destroyed all of them. She had the server destroyed. And this is desecration and destruction of public records, which is a crime. And they smashed the cell phones with hammers. But a whole lot of nothing. Nothing happened. And Hillary kept saying the whole time, "But her emails." That's it. They're gloating. They've been the whole time. Now that Donald Trump is being federally indicted and he will be arraigned today at 3 p.m. over similar charges, although the argument is that Hillary Clinton was not president and Donald Trump was, thus he has plenary declassification powers, meaning he can just do it. They all admit it. They all acknowledge it. But then they make up some circuitous reason why they must charge him. And they're saying espionage, mishandling of national secrets. They said, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to win on that ground. The president does have the right to take these documents. So they now are criminally charging him with 37 counts, including espionage charges. It's all fake. It's always been fake. And here we are. Now, a large crowd has shown up in Miami to support the president outside the courthouse. They're not going to be able to get in the building because there is limited seating. And what we're hearing now is that despite all of this, Teflon Don, they call him, they say that his polling is way up. 61% in the Republican primary. DeSantis is way down. Even with all of this going on, in fact, I'd argue the Democrats know that targeting Trump in this way makes him more popular. Now, it's hard to know exactly what their strategy is, and I can't tell you exactly what will happen when it comes to the 2024 election. But I would consider this. Donald Trump being criminally charged makes him more popular among Republicans, but less popular among independents, the politically disenfranchised or disillusioned, disaffected, people who generally don't pay attention. So, for the people who do pay attention, you're sitting here saying this man is being persecuted in his prosecution. They're targeting him specifically to stop him because they hate what he's done in trying to save this country. Now, as for moderates and people who don't pay attention, all they hear is Trump is a criminal. He broke the law again and again and again. And you know what? It's entirely possible that they indict him in Georgia next, and they will do everything in their power to stop him from being able to campaign, to rally, to give appearances. That's what it's all about. However, consider maybe they want Trump to become more popular so DeSantis loses and then Trump loses in the general. I'm not convinced this plan will work, but I don't know for sure. I don't think Joe Biden can defeat Donald Trump. He was able to beat Trump in 2020 because they locked everyone down, took away movies, took away sports, took away the bar, and they forced people to sit in a locked box in the big city and their houses and apartments. And then all they did all day on the news is say it's Trump's fault over and over and over again. Then they said, "Are you doing your part?" And people I know who have no business in politics went out and voted for the first time. No joke. So here we are. Here's the video from outside Miami. Brooke Shaver says this is part of the line of people trying to get into the courthouse for former President Trump's court appearance this afternoon. Courtroom will have limited seating. Most of these people will end up in an overflow room. No video, photos, or electronics allowed. Very interesting. And there's something very interesting about this case. It could possibly be dismissed outright. Let me show you this video real quick. Take a look at this. It's a very large crowd. Look at this line. Yo, this is massive. I this might be over 1,000 people. I can't tell right now. But I will say that people often underestimate crowd sizes when it comes to seeing big crowds. You know, my experience with protests is people would be like, how many people do you think are like 200? It's like, okay, look down at that crowd. You think 200? Start counting. And they'd be like, once they got like a quarter through and they're like, okay, I'm over 200 already. Yeah. People standing shoulder to shoulder, a lot more people than you realize. But I don't know how many people are outside. The only thing I can tell you is that they ain't going to fit in that courtroom. And we have this story, Trump's historic federal court appearance in Miami, how it's going to break down. So let me give you the quick breakdown, so saith the Daily Mail, as to what you can expect. Trump National Doral Resort, Miami. He will be leaving his hotel for the Wilkie D. Ferguson Jr. Courthouse in downtown Miami. Trump will arrive at the courthouse, where he will likely enter by underground tunnel. He'll be booked and fingerprinted and processed, but will not be jailed or pose for a mugshot. He will then appear in court. It's unclear if he will enter a plea. Cameras will not be allowed in. Trump's lawyers may ask for charges to be immediately thrown out. Ex-president will leave court and head to Miami International Airport. He will then fly to Bedminster, New Jersey for a speech at 8:15 p.m. Of course, we will have that speech for all of you on Timcast IRL. Can't miss it. This stuff's historic and important. But let's talk about where this all leads to. This is what the left is saying right now. Aileen Cannon, or is it Aileen Cannon? The Trump judge assigned to oversee his trial explained. If Cannon remains the judge in this case, it is unlikely that special counsel Jack Smith will convict Trump, no matter how strong the evidence may be. Okay, posted this morning as of today. Let me say it again for you, my friend. Civil war. Think of those words as however you want to think of those words. But when you read between the lines, this is what Vox is telling us right now. What Vox is telling us is that Trump appointed this judge, therefore the judge will not cause any harm or allow any harm to befall Trump. And if that's the reality, they're acknowledging that the trials in, say, New York are tainted by the New York jury pool all the same. That is what they just said with this subhead. Donald Trump is indicted in New York. People in New York mostly don't like Trump. New York City. People in New York State, upstate, they may. And a lot of people say like, oh, you know, New York City doesn't speak for all of us. There's more people. That's how it works. New York City has a ridiculous amount of people. I think the metro area, which does include the tri-state, has like 13 million or something like that. Maybe more, actually. And so while upstate you may like Trump, you are unfortunately outnumbered by the cities. So what's happening now? They will indict you or anybody else in a jurisdiction where they know they can't lose. Because the political divide in this country is so intense. Why should they send troops to come and detain you in some kind of war fashion when they can just arrest you on a warrant and then say, but it's legal? Now, one of the big problems is that Republicans don't do the same thing because they're weak, ineffective. I mean, you know, Trump's polling above Ron DeSantis. What do we get? The DeSantis campaign making the weakest and most pathetic attempt at manipulating people with deepfake images. That's what you get. You get deepfake DeSantis. You know, if you really want to play the deepfake game, that is not how you do it. I've already explained some of the scary things that could happen, but instead they try and do this. My point is, man, the Republican Party and elements of the right have no idea how to deal with this machine. They just don't. Certainly in any one of these states. Now you've got allegations of Joe Biden taking bribes. And now it's being uncovered last night that there are 17 recordings, allegedly. An FBI informant that the FBI believes to be very credible, says that Mykola Zlochevsky, founder of Burisma, secretly recorded the Bidens on numerous occasions for insurance. Okay. So any Republican in any jurisdiction should be able, with even the slightest modicum of standing, to file criminal charges against Joe Biden. Why aren't you doing it? Because they're weak. That's it. So let's just call it what it is. We are in a fourth and fifth generational civil war. Fifth generational warfare is psychological manipulation. War is not, people hear the word war and they think of this surface level historical like circumstance where people are marching down the street with guns. Yeah, war historically has been physical conflict. But a large component of war, especially the Cold War, was espionage and manipulation, propaganda. One of the things we've always done is leafleting, dropping pamphlets on foreign countries to shift the mentality of the people. You want people to revolt in an enemy country. If you can get the country to fight itself, you don't need to go to war. So perhaps a lot of what we're dealing with is China. But to put it simply, when it comes to what we're seeing now, if you think we are not in a civil war, I just got to ask you, when in history has a former president been indicted twice? Never. Not once. Even after the Civil War, you have, I think it was 1872 or 76. I always confuse the year. They had a council. They were like, who's going to be president? Well, we're confused. Let's cut a deal. The end of Reconstruction. They're going after Donald Trump. It is warfare. And you don't know exactly what their intentions are, what they're hoping to accomplish by doing these things, but it's never been done before. I can say on the surface level, Occam's razor, they are trying to remove a president. Now, okay. Maybe not civil war in the traditional sense. Maybe a revolution's a better way to put it. A revolution because they are going to remove the dominant culture from this country. It's a culture revolution. It's a political revolution. And without any opposition, why would we call it a civil war? It's just a straight up revolution. These elements are taking over and they're using the power of government to do so. In the long run, I do think they lose. Honestly, and yes. When you look at the Bud Light boycott, the Target boycott, or the Call of Duty boycott, culturally, they can't win. And they just can't. So this may be their death throes. But let me read a little bit for you, a little bit of this article for you so you can get an understanding of what's actually going on instead of me just ranting about civil war nonstop. This is the judge who is overseeing the case, and she was appointed by Trump. Vox argues, not long after special counsel Jack Smith filed a damning indictment against former President Donald Trump. I love how they add that adjective, turning this into an opinion piece and not saying that. Accusing Trump of deliberately withholding classified federal documents that he had no right to possess in the first place, except he was the president and he can declassify them. Smith received what could be the worst possible news about his chances of securing a conviction. The case is assigned to Judge Aileen Cannon, a Trump appointee to the federal district court in southern Florida. Cannon, a fairly young judge who was confirmed to the bench after Trump lost re-election, but before Joe Biden took office, has come onto the national stage, so far only once, for her extraordinary efforts to sabotage the Justice Department's investigation into Trump's possession of classified documents. A panel of 3 appellate judges, 2 also appointed by Trump, eventually stepped in and neutralized the sabotage in an opinion that identified about a dozen errors in her decisions. Eventually, a second panel of the U.S. State Courts of Appeals for the 11th Circuit ruled that she never had jurisdiction to interfere with the DOJ investigation in the first place. The latter opinion, which was handed down by a panel that included 2 Trump appointees and Chief Judge William Pryor, a prominent figure in the Conservative Federalist Society, labeled Cannon's decision favoring Trump a radical reordering of our case law, limiting the federal court's involvement in criminal investigations, and warned that Cannon's approach would violate bedrock separation of power limitations. There's no guarantee that Cannon takes the same cavalierly partisan approach to Trump's criminal trial as she did to the FBI's investigation, but it's enough of a concern that her assignment to the trial, which a court says was made randomly, using the ordinary process where judges are assigned to preside over criminal trials, immediately sparked alarm among a wide range of ideologically diverse lawyers. Orrin Kerr says, the Trump indictment allegations are bananas. With that said, if Judge Cannon is presiding, I'm not sure how the facts will matter. Based on her decisions in the litigation over the warrant, Cannon may do whatever she can to protect Trump, and there's a lot she can do. I wonder if actually Orrin has more to say than just that, and certainly does. He says, I hope my skepticism is unwarranted, but Cannon's decisions in the warrant case were astonishing. I find it hard to imagine a judge who would sign those opinions giving a fair shake to both sides, but we'll see. Several readers point to this thread from Joyce White Vance, expressing very high confidence that Cannon will not preside over the case. I am not so sure. Well, this is where we are so far. As I read the CA-11 reassignment cases like Torkington, Shagan, Gupta, and Martin, the test is a murky multi-factor inquiry. The trial judge generally gets a first chance to be fair. Reassignment happens after repeat showings. Here's what I think is going to happen. I would not be surprised if this judge does favor Trump. But you ain't going to know it. They'll argue it, but you ain't going to know it. If this judge, Aileen Cannon, really does want to help Trump, The smartest thing she can do is subtle. The smartest things she can do will be subtle. You don't come out outright and say, dismiss the case, get out of here. No, you can't charge Trump. You say, oh, no, Trump, yeah, you're being indicted. We're going to preside this case, and the prosecution is going to be allowed to present their evidence and all of that. And then what you do is when they seek to introduce some evidence, you say, yes, but you can only introduce it in this way. And then you say, I never denied they could introduce evidence. On these rules, I said you can't say this one component of it. And so they'll say something like, we have an audio recording of Trump, and they'll be like, can you prove it's not a deepfake? Where did this recording come from? How do you have this recording? The Trump camp is now going to be able to argue it's a deepfake. And I blame partially Ron DeSantis. I mean, this was coming. Don't get me wrong. But Ron DeSantis' campaign, they opened the doors and they refused to acknowledge it. And it's disgusting and despicable. They produced fake images of Trump hugging and kissing Fauci. And now all the Trump legal team needs to say is those are not real recordings. I'm sorry. Those are deepfake recordings that can be made in 2 seconds using 11labs.io or any other of these deepfake technologies. And the judge can be like, I agree. Unless you can provide forensic receipts of the authenticity of these recordings and it can withstand the defense's challenging of the evidence, then I don't see how we can admit this evidence anymore. It's not just about Trump. You know, I don't know exactly what this judge will do, but I'm telling you, man, we are entering a brave new world. This AI stuff. I said it before and I'll say it again. I can confirm to you 100% that courts have already allowed deepfake. I can confirm. They allow deepfakes to be admitted. They allow recordings that have no forensic evidence that the courts already allow this. The argument, as I've been told, is you have to prove it's not a real recording. Oh, that's impossible. Someone can generate a fake recording. They can manipulate it so that it sounds real. Here's what you do. They AI generate a voice, and then they play it on a computer speaker and record it to their phone. They then say, this phone is a recording of the person speaking. Because you are running it through the air, it obfuscates what may be, it breaks down the clean AI generated programmatic function of the patterns. Not perfectly. There's still probably ways people can try and AI detect, but there have been numerous attempts to AI detect written articles and things like that. And while some of them are fairly obvious, there was one viral post where a college student said that their teacher told them their paper was AI generated. And they said, it's not AI. I wrote it myself. And they said, well, no, we ran it through an AI checker and it says AI. So they rewrote it, gave it back to the professor who said, still coming up as AI generated. And so they took what they wrote and they ran it through an ad detection and it kept saying, yes, it was. And they were like, I have no idea what to do. Like, I wrote it, but it keeps saying it's AI generated. What do you do? So if you AI generate audio and then you send that AI recording, they might be able to look at that and say, look at these chops. That's not actual ambient room tone. That's not through a phone. What if you play the audio on a computer that you AI generate over the phone to someone else who records the phone call, and then it just sounds like a phone call? And they're going to say it's AI generated, and they're going to say, it's a phone call. And what can you do? The courts are going to have no choice but to just say, you can't use these recordings because we can't verify their authenticity. And AI has created shadow of doubt, reasonable doubt. Donald Trump can come out and be like, they have been making deepfake images and audio of me. Here's a picture the DeSantis campaign put out. So we'll see. We'll see. For the time being, I think the important components here to talk about, if Vox and many others genuinely believe that Trump appointed judges will protect him, call it whatever you want. But we're in a cold civil war. We're in a pre-war phase. We're at a point where this country is divided down hard lines with different states, mostly the urban areas, believing the world is completely different than people outside those cities. Not everybody, but enough. And you have judges within New York who will lie, cheat, and steal and break the law for political power. Meanwhile, they accuse Trump-appointed judges of doing the exact same thing. And if either of these is true, then there is no more justice and there is no political system. Donald Trump is the frontrunner for the Republican Party, and they're trying to put him in prison. That's it. For the first time in the history of this country, the system is completely broken. And do you think it'll get better? I think the system will get worse. But just because it'll get worse doesn't mean we lose. In fact, I think quite the opposite. As Noam Chomsky said a while ago, when you enter the arena of violence, the most brutal guy wins, and that's not us. The far left, the soy boys, whatever you want to call them, they're vicious. But that's only because the true warriors and fighters don't want to fight. If it really comes down to it, do you think the cities can survive? They can't. They literally can't. Food does not grow in cities. I mean, they might have gardens, and there's some vertical farming stuff they might be able to do. But if it really comes down to urban versus rural to an extreme degree, yeah, I got news for you. What's going to happen is the federal government and state governments will have to send armed forces to seize farms to make sure the cities can be sustained. It will get wild. And I don't know if it'll get to that point. Who knows? But it already feels like the system is broken. If they do indict Trump and try and stop him from winning, I think all hell breaks loose. I don't know. I don't know what you could expect at that point. I really don't. I mean, there's questions about Trump does have some weaknesses when it comes to Fauci, the vaccine, etc. And there's data coming out every day that puts Trump in a very bad position. I think there's a strong possibility that within the next year, information comes out about medical practices under Donald Trump that paint him in a very negative light and could seriously cause him harm and boost Ron DeSantis. But we'll see. I will stress this again because it is deeply offensive to me that the DeSantis campaign produced deepfake images, titled them Real Life Trump, and tried to trick you and me, into believing that Donald Trump was hugging and kissing Fauci. And now they're the biggest fans of DeSantis. They're pulling the typical Democrat evil lines of, did you really think it was real? Nobody thought it was real. I don't care. I don't care what you say, DeSantis simps. Deepfake DeSantis produced a fake image, multiple, in an attempt to trick us into thinking that Trump was buddy and hugging and kissing Fauci. I know that Trump's biggest weakness, one of them, is COVID and Fauci. And so you decided to try and lie to me. Yeah, I'm not going to play that game. If Joe Biden produced deep fakes of Ron DeSantis in this way, these people would be losing their minds. But you know what? The DeSantis supporters who are lying to defend him, they are the biggest of hypocrites. I'm not playing that game. Trump can be a potty mouth. Trump can post memes. Don't come to me and say Donald Trump posted deep fakes of DeSantis because you're lying. It's not true. Donald Trump retweeted a stupid post and said stupid things, as he often does. Not okay, not a big fan, but not the same thing as DeSantis producing deep fakes. I'm not going to entertain that reality, so it ain't happening. We'll see how things go. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.